All right, continue. Part 2, it says the story of Native American slavery told by Resendez become confused by convoluted interplay of the indigenous important system of human servitude. Despite his claim to uncover the other slavery when speaking of the forms of bondage imposed on Indian, he fails to acknowledge that there was no monolithic institution akin to particular transatlantic or one that would become identified with American South, which important Africans, talking about Israelites from the Southern Kingdom, auction as commodities. Even the distinction some scholars draw between slave society with slaves, depending on whether labor was essential or not to the German economy, only partially applies to high, complex, deeply local situations in slave American Indians. For these blended, dizzy variety of custom practice, will colonial system maintain a compulsory native workforce, and Rosetta is claiming to encompass the full tragedy and slavery across North America. He does not distinguish among different colonial systems, different Indian servitude, able by Indian allies of the colonizers that exist under English, French, or Dutch, or blah blah blah. That's slavery, man. At the end of the day, man, captivity. All right. It says during the 17th century, as some Spanish continued to raise the question for morality of slavery, silver mines opened in northern Mexico. As the demand for Indian manpower increased, this boom will require more workers than the Caribbean gold fields last far longer. Now, physical effort turned from surface panning or shallow trenches to sink shafts 100 feet of ground, more profitable than gold and silver was. Also, the more grueling to extract. Miners dug and loaded and hauled rocks in the near darkness for days at a time around present day. I'm trying to pronounce this word correctly. Zacatecas entire mountains were made of gray black ore. To meet the growing labor demand, Spanish and Indian slavery expanded out of the American Southwest, sending Pueblo Comanche slaves to the mines. This is the tribe of God, seasonal from Defiant. It's over here, and seasoned slaves from the Defiant Chicomac of northern Mexico during partially violent campaigns between 1540s and the 1580s. All right, so here, right here, man, they're enslaving the indigenous people of Mexico, man, so-called Mexicans. All right. All right, this is prophecy and all that working on those mines. This is Genesis 48. That's how you know this happening. This is, because folks be trying to say, oh, this happened. It ain't talking about now. In Genesis 49 said in the latter days, man. All right. It says Genesis 49-14. It said Issachar is a strong ass crouching down between two burdens. All right. You got the indigenous people of Mexico, the two birds, America and Mexico. And he saw the rest was good in the land, that it was pleasant, and the land was beautiful, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. All right, became a slave, man. All right. It says, all right. It says, from the beginning of the 16th century to the first decade, 19th century, 12 times as much as silver extracted from over 100 mines scattered throughout Mexico, and was gold during the entire California gold rush. It says at Parral, a silver mine center in southern Chihuahua. It says in 1640, the largest town north of Tropic of Cancer, over 7,000 workers descended to the shafts every day. Most of them enslaved natives from as far off as New Mexico would soon become little more than supply for Pearl after state-directed system for forcibly drafting Indian labor for Latin American silver mines known as Mita was instituted in 1573. It remained in operation for over 250 years and drew an average of 10,000 Indians a year from over 200 indigenous communities. It said, as Resendez shifts his narrative to a Mexican mainland, however, one is prompted to ask another question. An author who claims to have uncovered the paradigm arrangement in the slavery, should we know more of the history of those Indian slavery system that Columbus witnessed and that became essential for living workers to the Mexican mines. All right, so New Mexican households or their own Native American village throughout pre-Columbian eras, underage and female captive from intertribal warfare brutally turned into Mexican workers who prefer mineral ties Through recapture or ransom payments, some were repatriated, while many remained indentured during entire lives, but a number were absorbed into the whole settlement through forms of fictive kinship, such as ceremonial adoption, or most commonly through intermarriage. All right, because our captivity was different than Esau's system, man. Captivity among ourselves. All right, but Esau, you didn't spare us, man. All right, you didn't spare us. All right. It says among the 11th century mountain thing. All right, so let's get right here. Some of the Cherokee. It's among the 11th century mountain in the cultures at Mississippi Bottom, such as the war pyramids were made of surf underclass. The civilization collapsed in the 13th century, and its succeeding tribes we know as Choctaw, Cherokee, Creek, and other perpetrated practice serfdom. It said Cherokee war parties add to each own town stock of Atase Nahase. All right, or one who is owned. The custom continue across indigenous America, with childbearing women and prepubescent males generally preferred. Their husband and father were more commonly killed. Resented hardly mentions the subsequent partition. Those same tribes in a white man's race-based particular institution, they bought and sold African American slaves. All right, talking about Judah slaves to work the Indian on plantations. But see, what Esau not gonna tell you that some of those slave masters were Edomite tares, man. That Esau would marry like a chief. That's what they call them, chiefs anyway. Leaders among the Cherokee, and that child grow up. That child become the owner of that plantation, owner of some of the slaves, man. Yeah, you had full blood Cherokee that was on their own people, from the tribe of Judah. Right, you had that, man. But that's part of curses, man. I read it, man. How you think Esau got some of those slaves to Mexico, man? He had some Gadites that captured other Gadites, man. That's part of the curses, man. All right, and this only happened to the so-called Negroes, Latino, Native American, speckled birds. I say no, they the Israelites that the Bible speaks of, man. Clearly, curses fit them. All right, it said Deuteronomy 2:54. It says, "So that man that is tender among you and very delicate, his ass shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave." All right. It said, as for career predation upon Taino, it was not uncommon for stronger tribes to focus on perennial victims. In the southeast, the Chickasaw regularly took slaves from the Choctaw and Great Basin. The Ute stole women and children from the, see how I pronounce this, the Pt.2, and then trade them to the Mormon's household that was happy to pay for them. Wow. All right. So this is Gad on Gad, man. Gad on Gadite, Gadite on Gadite, man. All right. Part of the curse. It's in California. The northeastern is Modoc. And you'd not be thinking what Marvel got that name Modoc from, man. All right, Modoc. All right, it's in California. The northeastern Modoc regularly preyed upon the nearby Astugilwe, while the Colorado River dweller Mojave routinely raided the local Chemayuve. All right, select if I pronounced that wrong. It said these relationships between prey and predator might extend over generations among the hierarchical social orders of the northeast coast. Apparently, were slaves traditionally treated more like commodities to be purchased, traded, and given as gifts. All right. It says indirect, the Spanish helped to instigate the next upsurge in human trafficking across the American West. All right. It said their horses bred in northern New Mexico, then rustled and traded northward after the late 17th century, made possible equestrian revolution across the plains. In short order, relationship between a few dozen tribes shifted, all right, dramatically as the pedestrian hunting gathered people were transformed by horse into fast-moving nomads who became dependent on buffalo and preyed upon their neighbors. All right, let me tell you another thing, man. Gad already had a horse before Esau came here, man. Those horses already here, man. All right, that's another Esau like Esau like to tell, man. All right, to make it seem like our people was primitive and didn't know what the hell they was doing. All right, It says in the white American pop culture, red. All right, if you're not white, you're red. Eat them. In the pop culture, the newborn horses culture will be presented as war bonnets wearing teepee dwelling, war whooping stereotypes of Wild West shows and movie screens. Among them was the Comanches of the Southern Plains and the Utes of the Great Basin borderlands. It says by the mid 18th century, the Comanche military machine had put a damper on Spanish expansionism. Their cavalry regiment of 500 or more disciplined horsemen undertook 800-mile journeys north of farthest Arkansas River southward to within a few hundred miles of Mexico City. The slaves they plucked from the Apaches, the Pueblos, and Navajos became their prime currency in business deals with the Mexicans. All right, when it's talking about the Mexicans, it's basically the Edomites from Mexico, man. All right, it said New Mexicans majority of the time. It said New Mexicans and Americans. All right, so they taking their slaves from the people in Mexico, New Mexico, and Americans. All right. It says at enterprise auctions and established crossroads, Native American, Mexican, and Anglo slaves were being sold. All right. Some undergoing a succession of new masters. Until the U.S. government conquered them, Comanches held sway over 250,000 square miles of American and Mexican borderlands. All right. Okay. It says Resendez argued for continuity in this inhuman traffic right down to the present day. But his abrupt transition to the present after defeat of Comanches only reinforced our sense that his effort has been overly ambitious and weakly conceived at achieving this promised symptoms, all right, for so complex, persistent a topic simply and understandably overwhelmed him. His treatment of multi-natural practice colonial slavery is spotty, and the ubiquitous traditions of native on native slavery seems soft-handled. All right, whatever, man. All right, so Esau just trying to get his guilt, from the slave and the so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans. All right, it's like said, what about black on black crime? That's what Esau throw up every time policeman kill an Israelite with Jake. All right, it said Virginia is loosely estimated that between 2.5 to 5 million Indians were trapped in this other slave, which overwork and physical abuse doubtless contribute to the drop of 9% in the Native American population between Columbus Day and 1900. Right? Because Esau like to put the rumor that Gad and the rest of the North King tribe weren't strong enough, but had they were starving them, man, overworking them. All right. It said, but somehow little of all that torment come across vividly in the other slave. It said, we are told Navajos called the 1860 when their entire tribe was hounded for incarceration in southern New Mexico, the fearing time. Yep. It says, aside from the hint of collective emotional impact from victims, we get few testimony to reflect the anxiety and terror behind Resented's many summaries of human suffering. Tribune dislocation refer to lives on the birth rights lost forever. All right. It says a more convincing sense of racial discrimination and hatred bolster Petrie that slavery system discussed and Resented book comes from even a melodramatic film like John's Ford, The Search in 1956. All right. While the terrorists survived in the late 18th century West amid roving bands of merciless slave raiders are better invoking Cormac McCarthy Grand Guerrilla masterpiece of Blood Marion at 1985, reaching the Resented's account one hopes in vain for something similar to Rebecca West comedy Black Lamb and Grey Fountain 1941. Her chronicle of Yugoslavian multi-ethnic animosities is very hard to tell the difference between the history and the smell of skunk. Well, blah blah blah, whatever. All right. Indian slavery constituted the fact that American genocide. UCL historian Benjamin Melley extended to argue that genocide is the only appropriate term for what has happened to the native peoples in north central California between 1846 and 1873. For American Indians, slavery in the New World took many forms while preserved over 4th century while changing according to local conditions. Global pressures, maneuvers to invade, abolition crusade, genocide, the elimination of time groups might seem easier to evaluate. Yet historical episode mass Indian murder qualifies as genocide have become a matter of debate. All right, it's a matter shies away from hyperbolic acquisition, genocide, and Holocaust made simply discussion American history. All right. So I'm gonna skip this. I'm gonna go to another article. All right. All right. So I established that Issachar, Gad, all them was being enslaved. All right. And this from this article. All right. If I go to another article, here we go right here. The state of Yaqua. All right. He's doing this in the late 19th century and the early 20th century, man. They was enslaving Issachar. All right. It says abandoned. Let me see right here. Yep. It said abandoned train station is slighting witness to the slaving of the Yaqua Indians. All right. Right here, go picture of slave mother child. Here go plant slave mother and child right here. All right. Issachar now. All right. It says slave market concentration camps in Jalisco. While paging through the archaeological guide to western Mexico, I came across a cryptic reference to a long abandoned train station near the small town of San Marcos, Jalisco, located 800 kilometers of Guadalajara. All right, Guadalajara. All right, that's how you pronounce it. All right. It said Yaquas of one sold here as slaves for 25 centavos a head. Around the station were located concentration camps where hundreds of indigenous people died of hunger and disease. It said when I asked my Mexican friends where they ever heard such a thing, they asked me if I had ever heard a book called Barbarous Mexico by American named John Kenneth Turner. Right. And you Edomites, you are barbarous, man. Those that run Mexico. All right. I said I found a book because it had been published in 1911. I was able to read all of it online at weaker source. Despite the title, I quickly learned that the book is not an attack upon the Mexican people, but exposed atrocities committed against many of them by President Porfirio Diaz during the 34 years of his repeated unopposed re-election. It's one of the worst schemes the deal government would say Turner was the provocation of the Yaqua Indians to rebel in order to clear them out of Sonora so their land rich for both mining and agriculture could be sold to the Americans. Right? You taking people lands and stuff, man. Esau. All right. There's a scripture about that, man. Let me find it. Let's see. It says right here, Michael chapter 2, verse 1, it says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. While the morning is light, they practice up because it is in the power of their hand. They cover the fields and take them by violence, the house and take them away, so they oppress a man, and the house, even a man and his heritage. Right, man? All right, you taking fields and stuff, Esau. All right. It says, all right. All right. It says the Yaquas were put on boats at Guasmas and shipped to San Blas, where they was forced to walk over 300 kilometers to San Marcos. Here were largely concentration camps where family was broken up. Individuals were then sold inside the station and packed into train cars, which took them to Veracruz. Another boat ride took them to Progreso in Yucatan, from which they were taken to a plantation, which will be their tomb. All right, so this is Deuteronomy 28 and 68. All right. So, Deuteronomy 26, even though they weren't that far, right? But there's also Deuteronomy 28 and 48, man. All right. This is after slavery probably been abolished in Mexico, man. It said John Kenneth Turner, reporter for Los Angeles Press, first learned about this business in 1908 from several Mexicans locked up in the local county jail. All right. He said, "What are you accused of?" He asked them. "Invader friendly country," they replied. "What country is that?" "Mexico," they answered. Right. Mexico's run by Esau. It's run by Esau. It's not run by Issachar, the indigenous people, and Judah, the so-called Afro-Mexicans. All right. Here go this pit. It's a roll call at sunrise on a slave plantation. Look at that, man. It's a pictures. It's 1,000 words, man. All right, all those people, man. It says. It said John Kenneth Turner, reporter for Los Angeles Express, first learned about this business in 1908 from several Mexicans locked up in the local county jail. All right, so I read that part. All right, they go over here, woman in bullpen. All right, so it's a car right, women in bullpen. All right, you see they got their heads covered, man, just like in ancient times, man. Got their heads covered. All right, you can see them. All right. Right there, it says Turner inquired as why they would want to invade their own country because the Constitution had been suspended and awful things are happening. Yep. Yep. It sounds like martial law to me. All right. It said when he asked for concrete examples, the jail Mexicans told him that great numbers of people were being bought and sold like cattle, forced to work on Cicero plantation until they had dropped dead. Wow. Even though Mexico had abolished slavery many years ago. All right. It said Turner was also determined to see himself and traveled to Merida as he passed himself off as a rich man anxious to invest in lucrative hemp business. He discovered that Yaquas were indeed slaves in the worst sense of the word, beaten, bloody every morning at roll call, forced to work in the blazing sun from dawn to dusk on a little food, locked up every night, beaten again if they failed to cut and trim at least 2,000 Hennigan leaves per day. The Yaka women separated from their families and were forced to marry Chinamen. Wow, they tried to ethnically cleanse them, man. All right, so let's see, Deuteronomy 28. And you know they was Esau was taking advantage of them. He was having fun with them too, man. Old demon. All right. It says Deuteronomy 28 and 30. It says, thou shalt be wroth a wife, another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. It said, thou shalt be wroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. All right, and means engage, man. All right, the wroth is engaged, right? So they was forcing Issachar to marry these Moabites, man. Right? Esau had his fun with them too. All right. It says, and every baby born in plantation was up to 1,000 cash, $1,000. It says right, and every baby born on plantation was worth up to $1,000 cash to the owner. At least 2/3 of Yaka, Rab, and Yucatan were dead before the end of the end of the first year of such treatment. Turner was able to interview some of the slaves. One man with a baby on his arm said he was plowing in his field when the soldier came. They did not give me time to unhitch my oxen. He said, where's the mother of your baby? Inquired. Dead in San Marcos, replied the young father. That 3 weeks tramped over the mountains killed her. It said, indeed, Turner informers agreed that the crudest part of the trail was between San Blas and San Marcos, where the women with babies fell down a roadside never to get up again. All right, and see, Esau, you're going to have to pay for that, man. All right. All right. It said it first appeared that those who must grow rich from this atrocity were Porfirio Diaz's relatives or cronies, but the book points out that more than half the Sicily was shipped. To the USA. Turner accused the wealthy families such as Hearst, the Rockefellers, and the Guggenheims of having profited most from the aspirated lands of the Yaquas and the Mayas, the Zebulon, as well as Flaming Hill, the Hennigan plantation. All right. It said the Yaqua people were famed for being hard-working and strong. Right? What it said Issachar's a strong ass. It said between 1904 and 1909, according to Turner, around 15,000 of them was rounded up, forced along the tortuous route to Yucatan, enslaved. Despite their extraordinary strength. Most of them died within the first year of the plantation, raising the question of whether they were victims of genocide. Yeah, they was. It said after years of abandonment, San Marcos train station were renovated and turned to a cultural center. In my opinion, the building ought to be memorial for Yaquas, but there's not even a plaque commemorating the pain and sorrows suffered there, man. It said today, few citizens of the area are aware of the atrocity that took place in the train station. Edio Juan Diaz of San Marcos remember stories of false promises made by President Porfirio Diaz in those times, and recalled those that took bait were rewarded by becoming slaves in the Hinquin plantations. All right, like I said, man, Esau, you can't trust him, man. He's a liar. All right, what is that at Psalms? Let me see. Psalms 55:20. It said his words of his mouth was smooth as butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softened than oil, yet were they drawn swords. All right. Okay, we'll go here. Verse 20. It said, go up a little bit. He had put forth his hands against such as to be at peace with him, and he had broken his covenant. Right, breaking promises, man. All right. All right, that's it. So it said Turner's book raised the eyebrows at the time of its publication. It has been called the Uncle Tom Canvas of Slavery Mexico, as filled with passion and indignation. It may not be considered objective, more than a scholarly treatment of the same subject I was published in Duke University Press in 1974. All right. So it said Hugh Durrett confirms the great majority of Turner claims. No exception is certain that Yakar was essentially peaceful. The Diaz government did not provoke the Yakar rebellion, but inherited. It says Hugh Duhart, who points out that the Yakwa inevitably sided with anyone fighting the authorities and refused to accept any deal given them less than the one they wanted, complete ultimately in their lush corner of Sonora. Initially, Hugh Duhart on emotional paper provide hard evidence might seem Turner's most controversial accusation. The government of Porfirio Diaz deliberately attempted genocide of Yakwa. They did. They deliberately attempted genocide of the tribe of Issachar. All right. She quotes the words of General Lorenzo Torres to the chief Yakwa in 1908. The government is disposed to exterminate all of you if you continue to rebel. Right? It was some person Jake, man. All right. But Esau wanted to. He tried to wipe us out, man. All right. It said if you are traveling along the Highway 4 in the state of Jalisco, perhaps visiting the great stone balls of Ajaloco, or Huacamontias, the circle pyramids of Teocalli, you might want to stop at San Marcos train station, which is 420 meters off the road, to reflect on various events which took place, and there perhaps wander in the beautiful eucalyptus grove next to the old building. Traces of the Yaqua passing had been obliterated, but their decomposing bodies probably helped get light to those tall, proud trees. Perhaps they are the best memorial of all many souls who were murdered at San Marcos. All right. So let me get the scripture right here, man. All right. And this happened supposedly after slavery was the slavery of Issachar and Judah was abolished in like 100 something years before that. All right. It says right here. Let me see. Let me get this. Just bear with me, Akim. All right. I'm trying to find a scripture. All right. Let me see. Trying to get a scripture. Just bear with me, Slock. All right. Where is What's that? All right. Dun, 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 dun. Where's that? Let's see. All right. Okay, it says right here, Deuteronomy. Yep. It says Deuteronomy 28:50. It says, "A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard a person of old, nor show favor to the young." All right. And it says right here, let me see. Yep. I already read this. You get Obadiah, man. All right. Yep. Get that. Okay. It said Obadiah chapter 1 verse 10. It said, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever." All right. Yep. Esau gonna be cut off. Obadiah chapter 1:18. The house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame. All right. So you got southern and northern kingdom. All right. This is in the kingdom. All right. It said, "In the house of Esau for stumble, they shall be kindled in them and devour them. There shall be not any remain in the house of Esau, even Yahweh has spoken it." All right, so this is like after 1,000 years of slavery, man. You know, people gonna line you up and burn you, man, for all your atrocities, man. All right, all your atrocities you committed against us, man. From all your atrocities upon the 12 tribes of Israel. All right. Get some. It's Zechariah chapter 1 verse 15. It said, "I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. For I was but a little displeased, and they helped for the flinch." Right, you help for the flinching, man. All right, being unmerciless, man. Our people all falling out and everything. You just leave them dead on the ground and don't bury them, man. It's the same thing happened. I forget what it's called. It's somewhere I believe in Georgia. I think it's called the Devil's Bowl, man. Where they just left dead bodies. They just left them, man. Just left them there, man. And those dead bodies had fertilized some of those peach trees, man. And people won't eat from them. Eat from those peach trees, man, because they know that those dead bodies or those Judites had fertilized those peach trees, man, for generations, man. You know. All right, so this proved that the so-called 2 articles, man. They proved that the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Israelites that the Bible speaks of, man. All right, in this situation, the so-called Latinos and Native Americans. All right, so all right, the mic been dropped. Shalom.